Planty people, it's Krista from Botanical Bird, and this week I want to talk about several different tools that I think every plant parent needs, and I'll kind of divide them up into two categories of like the basics, and then maybe if you are more of an advanced plant parent or you are just interested in upping your plant game, that you could also consider purchasing. Okay, so the first tool that I think every plant parent should have is a watering can. Some people have really sleek, cool, like tin watering cans or metal watering cans. I just got what I thought was the cheapest at my local garden center. Something to consider with watering cans is how much water that they hold. If you want to be taking more frequent trips to the sink or bathtub, or less frequent trips, you might want to consider a bigger or a smaller one. And then I find the smaller the spout, the better it is, because if you have indoor plants, most likely your plants are in pots, and sometimes if the spout is too wide, water tends to spill out everywhere instead of having just like a directed stream wherever you're trying to water. The next tool that I recommend getting, I think is probably the one I use second most often, right after the watering can, is like a knitting needle or a chopstick or something to poke around in the soil to aerate it and allow more oxygen to the roots. A lot of times if we're watering soil repeatedly, it can get really compact, and that can basically suffocate roots and it can cause your plant to die. So knitting needle, it's just like so trusty, something that's not too flimsy, but it doesn't have to be metal, but I like my knitting needle. It's also pretty long, which is helpful for those deeper pots. Next, a tool that most of us can carry around with us everywhere is just your finger whenever I am trying to see if a plant needs water. Sometimes I'll kind of weigh it in my hand, but other times, mostly what I do is just I stick my finger down into the soil as far as I can and see if I feel any moisture. Next, I recommend a pair of good shears. For a long time, I just used normal scissors, but if you have a plant that has really thick stems, then it can be kind of hard. So shears, I think, are just good for cutting off dead growth, or if you're trying to take cuttings to propagate, they can be really helpful. Next, I recommend Ziploc bags. I use them for so many different things. I mix my own soil, and so I use them to hold the different amendments for the soil, and I also use them as humidity chambers if I'm propagating something, or if I get a plant mailed to me and I just want immediately to try to like help it recover from shock, then I'll put it in a bag and mostly seal it and spray some water in there to increase the humidity. So I think Ziploc bags, especially when you reuse them, can be so helpful for many different reasons for plants. Next, I recommend a spray bottle. I used to mist my plants, and so I used them for that until I read that misting plants with water doesn't significantly increase the humidity around your plant long enough for it to really matter. So now I use them if I'm trying to treat a plant for pests. I will make the mixture of whatever I need in the spray bottle and then spray it on the leaves. So mist your bottles if you are someone who wants to mist your leaves, or if you're trying to clean the leaves and want to spray water that you'll then wipe off. A spray bottle works really well for that. Next, I recommend rubbing alcohol. This is something that can be used to treat many different pests. There's like a special mixture that you can make that you can just Google that has, I think, water, rubbing alcohol, and dish soap. And it can work to treat so many different pests. So I like to keep a bottle on hand for that. Next, bamboo stakes can be so helpful for so many reasons. I use them to support my plants if they're kind of leaning, or if they're getting long and gangly, or if they just kind of need some support. I've built a trellis before from watching Becca de la Plante's trellis video, or if you're going to ship a plant, kind of sticking this in the soil can help protect or prevent the plant from moving around and getting going right along with the bamboo stakes. I like to use yarn to attach the stem of the plant to the stakes. It's definitely not what most people do. I think a lot of people will get, I don't know if it's called like plant tape or something, or like Velcro, but basically you want something that you can connect the plant to the stake to without girdling the plant, like having it too tight. And so I feel like yarn is really great at that, because even if you tie it tight, it loosens over time, and this is really soft. And I like it because it's green, so it hopefully blends in more with the plant and will look less man-made. Okay, so those are all the tools that I recommend just basically for most houseplant parents. Now I'd love to talk about different tools that if you're kind of looking to step up your game, that you might consider using. Okay, first things first, you might want want to get your own materials to make your own soil. I want to make a whole separate video about how I make my soil, so I'm not going to go too much into depth right now, but just some basic things. I use a cocoa coir base and I add lots of different amendments like horticultural charcoal and sometimes pebbles or pumice or orchid bark just to make it more airy. So if you're kind of trying to step up your game and you want to make your own soil, having all those things on hand can be really helpful. And if you buy them in bigger quantities, they will last you forever, which is really convenient. But then you have to store it too. So kind of consider that when you're getting all of these things. So I feel like it can be difficult to be a plant parent when you're in an apartment, and this repotting mat saved my life so many times. I used to go out on my balcony and repot there. I was living on the second floor, and it was nice to be outside, but it was kind of a pain in the booty every single time to like put out like a tarp, sweep everything up, and it was just like frustrating to have to do that very frequently, especially in the spring and summer, to have to go out there like almost every day or just several times a week and do that whole process. So having a repotting mat is really nice. Honestly, it's just a tarp that connects on the corners, so it's really hard to see, but this is like what one side would look like. It looks so bad, but it's just a small water resistant tarp that folds up really easy. I like the simple storage, and so I thought that like that was one of my favorite plant purchases that I got when I was becoming more into plants. Next, I just love using household items. So a turkey baster can be really useful if you are watering plants in place that have saucers below them. So like there's a drainage hole in the pot and you have a plant saucer under that. And if it's a really big plant, sometimes we can't always lift them up and like dump them or whatever. And so I'll use a turkey baster to suck out the excess water and a plant saucer if the plant is too big to move. Next, I think I got this at the same time as the repotting mat. Soil scoops, I feel, changed my life. It's just like a big spoon or a ladle would do just fine, but I like having specific things for specific purposes, and I would love if the soil scoop was a little bit bigger, but I got them on Amazon in like a pack of 6 or something, so way more than I needed, but then I was able to give some away and some free giveaways on Instagram. So I feel like I really like having this. It's, it has the slanted opening, so it's easy to pour, you can scoop things up, you can mix things around, and it's really thick plastic, so it's not gonna bend. So I mentioned earlier that I usually just stick my finger in plants to know if they need to be watered or not, which is totally true. If I don't wanna do that because I just don't wanna get dirty, or if I just did my nails or something, sometimes I'll use my hydrometer. And I still don't think it's as accurate as just sticking your finger in a plant. Like sometimes it'll say something's completely dry when I think that it's still partially moist, or it'll say it's moist when it feels dry to me. So I wouldn't always trust this, but I feel like it can be helpful, especially for those plants that are in really deep pots and I can only reach my hand so far down. I do rely on this quite a bit. And it's kind of a 2-for-1. Like if you wanna use it to aerate the soil, you can also do that because it has the long probe. All right, so we talked about rubbing alcohol to create I don't know if it's pesticides the right word, but you can also get other things like commercially made products that are used to ward off pests. I use neem oil because it's supposed to be safe for plants, but I have learned that it does have like some harmful chemicals in it and it's not good to breathe in. And so I haven't been using it as much. Obviously the alcohol also isn't really good to breathe in, but I've been leaning more towards that because I think it also does a better job. But neem oil is something that I got. I also have it in concentrate so that when I use up this bottle, then I can just mix it again and be set. But so you might consider other sorts of ways to ward off pests. All right, last I recommend some kind of glass vessel, or I guess plastic vessel. I like glass because I think it has a very clean look, very sleek, and then you can watch the roots grow too. So obviously it's for water propagation of different cuttings of plants or just plants in general. They don't have to be specially bought for vessels. They can just be glass cups that you have, or I've done a fair amount of thrifting of glass vessels that it can be a super affordable price for something. Like this one's actually, I think, kind of just more of like a vase. I want to put it so you can see it. I think I got some from At Home that were even cheaper. So just like keeping your eye out for fun shapes. I really like looking for glass vessels because the unifying thing is that they're glass, right? And so even if they're all different shapes and sizes, they still look like they belong together. And I'm a big fan of water propagation. I feel like it's the easiest way to propagate, and it's also probably the most aesthetically pleasing. So if you want, I think that's another great tool, quote unquote, that you can invest in. All right, so that is it for this video. I would love to hear what kinds of Planty tools that you guys use regularly, or if you have any other ones that you would suggest to add to the list, I'd love to hear them. Please put those in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Botanical Bird, and bird has a U in it, not an I. Follow my Planty Instagram, which is at botanical_bird, and check out our website at botanicalbird.com. We'd love to have you guys visit. And remember, we're rooting for you. Bye.